Welcome to another Suite 8 developer training session. We're going to explain how to use Symfony service decorators to extend core classes on SuiteCRM. As an example, we're going to add a new entry to the module menu. If you can see here on cases, we've added a new create critical error case. This is going to pre-create a case and fill it with some predefined values so that the user can then later add extra values and complete that case. As you've seen, we are on a new case. It already has an ID. We're on edit mode. And it has a subject, and some of the values have been predefined. Now let's look into the code. The first thing we need to understand is what do we want to extend in order to add the new menu entry. And the answer to that is the NavbarHandler. The NavbarHandler is a legacy handler that is going to fetch the navigation definitions, the menus, and send that to the API. It has a method called getNavbar, where it is going to call the legacy, do some mappings, and prepare a data structure to send to the front end, which we call here Navbar. On that structure, we have modules. This structure for modules is where we have all the module menu links. And this is what we want to extend, meaning where we want to inject our new module menu entry. Now that we know the class that we want to extend, which is on core, backend, Navbar, NavbarHandler, we know the path that we want to create within our extension. So let's go to our default txt, and I've created backend, Navbar, and my new class, which is a decorator. I've gave it this name so that if you want, you can add multiple decorators, each with its own purpose. Now, just a bit of an intro on decorators. Symfony provides us with service decorators, which follow the decorator design pattern. Decorators are an alternative to directly overriding a service. When you override a service directly, you just swap the implementation for a service with another class, and that's it, period. But decorators have a better side to it, where you can add multiple decorators for the same service. That means you can have multiple plugins all decorating the same service without the need to know each other. Of course, we need to be careful because they can override the same things on the same class. It's a point we need to be careful about, but they don't need to know about each other. Plus, decorators allow you to define a priority to see which one runs first. To add a new decorator, you need to implement or extend the class you want to decorate, and then on the services YAML, and this is the services YAML within my extension, and all the extensions need to have a services YAML. Within this file, we're going to add here the reference to my new class, my new decorator, and here define that it decorates the navigation provider interface, which is the interface that NavbarHandler implements. By implementing the navigation provider interface, we'll have to declare two methods, or implement two methods, the getNavbar and the ModuleRouting. For our scenario, we don't need to change anything on the ModuleRouting, so we're just going to return what the decorated service does. The decorated service is the main service we're decorating, and we receive it on the constructor, as you can see here, on the navigation provider interface. And if you have multiple decorators for the same service, what will happen is that the first decorator will receive on the constructor the main service, the original one, and the second decorator is going to receive on the constructor the first decorator, and so forth. So each will receive the other, so they mount on top of each other. Please have in mind that when decorating, you're not extending meaning you don't have access to the protected methods. You only have access to the public methods. So that's something you have to have into account when deciding if you want to extend or decorate a service. In our case, it's all good because the getNavbar is a public method. Now, to inject our new menu entry, what we're going to do is call the decorated service, the original one, getNavbar. So this will provide me with the final definition. From there, we're going to get the modules. From the modules, the cases definition, and from there, the menu. We're going to add here a check to see if the current user has edit access to cases, and then inject our new menu entry. To make it an entry that calls a process handler, what we need to do, apart from the typical configuration, is to add this entry here saying that this uses this process. Cases create critical error. This is the same process that we use on the example that we give on Suites docs, so you can also check there. So the front end, when reading the menu, it will check if there's a process, and instead of rendering a link to a page using the URL, it's going to call this process, which we're going to see how it's implemented in a second. After defining our menu, we're going to re-add it to the cases, to the modules, and to the navigation, and return that. And this here is the overwritten configuration that's going to go into the front end. Now, let's see our process handler. I've added here a new case create critical error process handler, and it is within modules, cases, service creates. This initial path is standard, so modules, cases, service, and then here I added a create folder with my process handler. So just to give it a scope, if I wanted to have more services related with creates, I would add them to this folder. It's an optional way to structure your code. Here we're going to implement the process handler interface, define the process type with the same key that we used on our decorator. The process handler interface makes me implement the process type, the required auth role to say if this provider needs or not an authenticated user. You have to define the get required ACLs. Here I'm checking if the user has access to edits for this module, which are going to be cases. The configure is standards, it's always the same. Then I do some validations. I get the options. I see if the module that's requesting this is cases or not, because I need to check that. And then finally, I need to implement my run method. For this, what I'm going to do is call the bin factory to create a new bin, pre-fill some values, and finally save it, and finally return a handler for redirecting that is known by the front end. And when the front end checks this handler, it knows, okay, I need to redirect somewhere. It goes to the parameters, it checks routes, and then the route that I give it. And this route is going to be built to point to the new case that I just created. At the end, I need to set the status, send the response data, and that's all that I need to do in order to create my case and then redirect on the front end to its on edit mode. After doing this, don't forget to clear cache, and that should be all that you need to do in order to implement this scenario.